I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. And I'm Warren Pepper, your moderator for this forum, and the candidates for the office of Charleston County Sheriff. It's sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Charleston area. It's nonpartisan. This league never supports or opposes political parties or candidates. Let me let you know that this forum and other league-sponsored forums are available on the League's Facebook page and on vote411.org, which is the League's voter information website. The forum today is also being broadcast live in Spanish by Nuestro Estado on their Facebook page. November 3rd, voters will choose a candidate to fill the office of Charleston County Sheriff for a 4-year term. And I'll introduce our candidates today. They are Al Cannon, Republican, Kristin R. Graziano, Democrat. Let me briefly go through the format. Candidates in alphabetical order will have 60 seconds for some introductory statements. I will ask questions from the League and from the public that have been submitted in advance. No questions will be asked that are directed to only one candidate or of a personal nature. Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to the questions. Candidates may make an additional 60-second comment after the other candidate has responded. And if you'll just signal me by raising of your hand, I'll make sure you get a chance to respond. At the end, each candidate will have 60 seconds for a closing statement in the reverse order of your introductory statements. And we ask that candidates use closing statements to maybe summarize the issues they've already discussed and their vision for the position they seek. Our timer will signal candidates when they have 30 seconds remaining and also when time is up. I will let you know, I'm not going to aggressively jump in. If you're in the middle of a sentence, I'm going to let you finish that. And I know you folks will all cooperate accordingly. So let's begin, and we'll do that with 60-second introductory remarks. And Mr. Cannon, you'll be up first there with your remarks, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you to the League for providing this opportunity for me and Kristin to speak to the voters of Charleston County. I have been the elected sheriff since February of 1988. On January 1st, 1991, the responsibilities of the then Charleston County Police Department were transferred to me, and I became responsible for merging those two agencies. I took all of the employees from that agency, and we set out together to make Charleston County Sheriff's Office a leading law enforcement agencies from just about every perspective. We have been successful, I believe, in that time period, and we have developed resources that the former county police never had. We have provided training to our folks and opportunities for upward mobility and promotions. We have begun some very innovative programs, and I believe that the next 4 years will allow me to conclude some major issues that I'm invested in. Probably first and foremost is the Juvenile Detention Center. But there
Sheriff, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yes,
and
sir.
Go ahead and give Ms. Graziano a chance for 60 seconds introductions there. Ms. Graziano, you may go ahead.
You want me to do it again?
Well, there's some people who have joined us since we started, so
Okay.
Go ahead and give us
Sure.
your fair share there.
All right. So I will repeat what I said earlier. My name is Kristin Graziano. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Democratic candidate for sheriff in Charleston County. And again, I've served my communities for over 3 decades as a law enforcement professional. My experience is quite extensive in law enforcement, but most of my work, as I stated earlier, has kept me in direct contact with the communities that I've served, whether those communities were in the neighborhoods and schools, out on the water, in a courthouse, on a bike, on a motorcycle, in a car, or just walking the beat. I was there. I was the longest serving and only senior element leader for Charleston County SWAT team, and served as assistant commander of a SWAT team in Virginia, in Charlottesville, Virginia, So I have over 20 years in that capacity. I am running for sheriff because I believe we're at a critical time for much needed reform, and I have a bold vision for progress, and I will lead that charge. Again, I thank you, Warren, and thank you, Sheriff, for being here, and I look forward to this.
Very well. Ms. Graziano, you will be first as we start our question and answer session. And again, we provided opportunities for the public to submit questions. We also have some that have been compiled by the league as well. And Mr. Graziano, you will be the first up in the answering process. And here is your question. If elected or re-elected, what would be the first task you would take on as Charleston County Sheriff?
Well, thank you, Warren, and that is a great question. There's not just one task that I will take on, but what I will do first is I will conduct audits, both financial and of our policing practices of the sheriff's office as well as finances, and based on those audits, do two things: form a truth and reconciliation council that will allow us to redefine our policy and procedures, policy and procedure going forward for needed reforms, and additionally, a community action board that will help us get into the community and really just kind of redefine where we need to be in our community. That is one. The financial audits are necessary because unfortunately in the current administration that we've found that audits have not been conducted on funds that generate millions of dollars, and I will lead that charge.
And Mr. Cannon, your answer to that question as to the task you'd like to take on if reelected.
Okay, I've lost your picture there, but we would continue with things that we have in progress. Like I say, the first and most important perhaps is the juvenile detention center that is going to begin construction in the very near future. Council has approved all the necessary funding for that. Insofar as the reference to auditors, I have an internal auditor and the county auditor that both audit our funds. The inmate welfare fund has not been done in a while, and I'm not sure I understand why it was stopped, but the county came in and audited that as well. We make all our purchases through the county procurement process, and they oversee all that we do in that regard. There are obvious challenges here in the near term with respect to the upcoming election and how that might evolve in light of what's going on around the country and the very divisive nature of the two party supporters, and obviously we have to be concerned about that. And
Sheriff, I'm going to have to stop you there. I will tell you that we can still hear and see you just fine.
Okay.
I have to ask your indulgence, since you can't see us, maybe you won't see the various timer signals. So I'll have to just jump in there with you.
That's fine. That's
be
fine.
courteous about that. Any response? Yes, Ms. Graziano, go ahead.
Am I allowed to respond to that? The sheriff of the inmate welfare fund, that wasn't what I brought up, but I will just say that based on that, that fund has generated millions of dollars over the last 4 years, not to mention 19 years that it hasn't been audited. That fund is intended to benefit inmates. What we have found through our experience, through our auditors, is that that fund was used to benefit sheriff's office programs. So I think it's very disingenuous to say that this inmate welfare fund was the only fund. There are more funds than that, but the reason for that I would call for an audit is because that fund in particular could lead to great things for people that actually benefit the inmates, and it has not done that thus far.
Fair enough. Sheriff, would you care to respond to that? I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. She mentioned millions of dollars, and that's what I thought she was referring to was the inmate fund. But what she's referring to are expenditures we use to set up a special operations group in there in the detention center, which has gone great lengths and has been successful in reducing inmate on inmate crime. So when you talk about those expenditures going for the safety of the inmates, I don't know that you can find anything that's more appropriate than that kind of expenditure. But it was nothing that benefited me or anyone else.
And Ms. Graziano, I'll give you one chance to reply there.
Yeah, I would love the chance to reply. The Inmate Welfare Fund is established by law, and I think Sheriff knows that it has to benefit the inmates. I don't understand how you can justify and why you would push the narrative that this funding benefit by buying ammo, guns, training, dogs, overtime, fringe benefits, among other things from non-qualified trainers. I'm not sure how you can justify that benefits the inmates, and that's all I have to say.
All right, we will go to the next question. This is for Mr. Cannon first. What would you do or what are you doing to keep incarceration levels low?
That's a great question, Warren. And quickly, in 2014, we became aware of a private grant that was available. It was a competitive grant. It was brought to my attention. I approved us pursuing that grant, and we ultimately were one of 11 locations in the country to receive initially $2.5 million and then a further $2.5 million. And that was aimed at creating efficiencies within the justice system. And a part of that was the creation of Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which includes community leaders and all of the stakeholders in the justice system. And we identified a number of things in terms of gathering the data on the inmate population. And out of that, we began, for example, to offer officers on the street and deputies the option of citing someone for simple possession of marijuana and rather than placing them in jail. So we have done those things since 2014.
All right, Ms. Graziano, are you good with the question? You'd like me to repeat it?
I am great. I am great with the question, but I have to respond to this first and foremost. I think that the sheriff misspoke. I want to clarify a statement that I think was misstated, but the sheriff did not form CJCC, which is Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and the sheriff did not obtain the $5 million grant to the jail population. The sheriff's office serves as a fiduciary solely for that grant money. CJCC, as he stated, is an independent collaboration of elected officials, senior officials, law enforcement leaders, court leadership, behavioral health people. I think there's some victim advocates, community leaders. It has a director and a board. CCASO, Charleston County Sheriff's Office, is a voting member on that board. I'm not sure that the sheriff has ever been to that meeting, so he wouldn't know. But they meet regularly to address the systemic challenges and to coordinate system-wide responses to criminal justice. They had been around since the 80s. This is not that something the sheriff did as a result of reform or as a result of receiving the grant. And I think to state that is very disingenuous. And I think if folks want to know the facts about that, they can go to cjcc.charlestoncounty.org to find out for themselves.
All right, we will move to the next question unless Sheriff Cannon has any reply.
I do. There was, and I was a part of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council back in the 80s. It lied dormant, and it did not have the kind of agenda that the current one does, but that would not have gone forward but for the sheriff and the sheriff's office agreeing to be that fiduciary. She is disingenuous in that regard. That clearly is something that we pursued. Vic Rawl recommended to a lady who was interested in that she contact the sheriff's office, and my assistant sheriff has been the one that was the chairman of that up until here recently. So she really doesn't understand that. She has not been to a meeting either, and they're all open to the public.
Ms. Graziano, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, yes, I actually, and again, I will point people to cjcc.charlestoncounty.org to get the facts and about what that is about. And I think that they will find that that is not correct.
Our next question, Ms. Graziano, you will begin with this. What changes, if any, need to be made in the initial training of deputies? Ms. Graziano.
Let me unmute. Okay,
Yes,
great.
go ahead. Now you're
So
unmuted.
one of the first things that I think needs to happen and we need to recognize is there's a lack of diversity in police work. Charleston County is no exception. We have 70 or 67% population of white people, 76%, and 0% in command staff. 100% command staff is white. 27% of our population is Black, and we have 0% Black representatives on command staff at the sheriff's office. 4% is Hispanic, and we have 0% of representation at the command staff level for Hispanic. And I know that argument's going to be made, well, we have a hard time recruiting because we don't pay. Well, we have the opportunity to fix that pay, but we did a pay study in 2018, implemented in 2019, that penalized people that had been experienced and had education. So it's very hard to justify that when we're not doing the work that requires us to do the work.
All right, time up. And Mr. Cannon, what changes, if any, need to be made in the initial training of deputies?
Well, let me point out that the recruit training in the first instance is provided by the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. We have a pre-training mission in the sheriff's office, and we take newly hired applicants and train them before they go to the academy. And in fact, a year and a half ago, we met with the academy, and as a result of that meeting, it was primarily the Low Country. The academy has begun to provide the first 4 weeks of that training online. So we train that. And then once they go to the academy and become certified, they come back and they go through another training program with a field training officer who connotates that they have demonstrated competency in the key elements of policing that are a part of the book that they have to complete. We have ongoing training. We have had some of the best mental health training, critical incident training, and we continue doing that. So I think the training right now certainly is competent and provides law enforcement a good basis. And we're continuing to work with the Criminal Justice Academy on their curriculum in light of things that change around the country.
Ms. Graziano, a response to that? And don't forget to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm not saying that the training department is not competent. In fact, the average trainer at the sheriff's office has only got less than 3 years experience. So I think there's something to be said for that. But we have a recruitment office in name, but there is no active effort to address the equity and inclusion. And if we had a successful program, diversity would not be an issue. At the same time, we have this incredible opportunity with many dedicated professionals. I will agree with that still serve and want to continue to serve, but because they believe in what they do. We must take care of them and treat them and compensate them as the professionals that they are. we are currently below the national average, even with the study that we just did, and it continues to be a problem.
All right, time for the next question. And Mr. Cannon is up first with his response to this. How would you work, or how are you working to ensure that people with substance abuse or mental illnesses receive appropriate and adequate services while in detention? After detention, what programs would you support, and what would you do to support them?
Warren, that's a great question. Part of that relates to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, because two of the things that came out of that was a crisis stabilization unit that we man in terms of the security, that where mental health care professionals can meet with folks who are in crisis. That's for individuals who are having an emotional breakdown or a mental health crisis, but aren't committing any serious crimes. We also have and are waiting the funding for a similar thing with respect to substance abuse. That would be a sobering center. But insofar as the detention center is concerned, we contract with mental health, and we contract with DEODIS, and those two mental health and substance abuse organizations provide treatment in the detention center.
Got to stop you right there, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure I'm giving everybody an equal chance here. Ms. Graziano, would you like me to repeat that question to you? How would you work? How are you working to ensure that people with substance abuse or mental illnesses receive appropriate and adequate services while in detention? After detention, what programs would you support, and what would you do to support them?
Thank you so much for asking that. And I feel like I need to respond to what was said about the programs already in place when we say we're working on doing things that should have been done a long time ago. But jail reform is part of the comprehensive changes that need to happen. We need initiatives that will reduce the population. When I say do audits, I'm not, by no means am I saying defund. What I'm saying is look at where we're spending our money and see how we can reallocate that money to better serve the population that we are in charge of. And part of that is mental health, and part of that is substance abuse. And believe it or not, transportation, housing, all these things, the poverty factor plays into this. So we have to be good stewards of the money that we have, and we don't have that. The Inmate Welfare Fund is a perfect example of that. We have millions of dollars funneled through the system, and we're not putting it to good use.
Thank you, Ms. Graziano, and I will move to the next question here. And Ms. Graziano, you are up first with your response. What is your view on participation in federal programs that provide surplus military equipment or funding to buy military equipment? Ms. Graziano.
So what you're referring to is 287, the 1033 program with the federal government, and that's buying military, law enforcement buying military surplus. The Sheriff's Office doesn't really participate in that to a great extent. They do have weapons that have helped outfit the people like me, the patrol or people on the road for weapons. But those vehicles and the equipment they're talking about really are not made to be in our environment. They're weapons of war. So, but for smaller agencies and other agencies, not so much Charleston County, they do serve a purpose in keeping the officers safe, and I'm not opposed to that. But I don't think there's really a need for that. You know, we got grant money years ago to get armored equipment for our SWAT team and for us to safely go to a scene, and I think that's been very beneficial to us. But that is not 1033 money.
Mr. Cannon, you'd like to respond here. Your view on participation in federal programs that provide surplus military equipment or funding to buy military equipment.
begin with, we have not received anything through that 1033 program that we could not buy. So those things that we did receive saved us having to use taxpayer money to do that. And all that we have gotten has been pretty much to provide greater safety and capabilities to our deputies. We did get an armored vehicle back in time that the SWAT team used for a long time. I'm not sure she was referring to that. That was a peacekeeper. But the armored vehicle we have now is not military surplus. We were provided that in a grant to develop that as a regional resource in terms of Homeland Security money. So there are some things in that program that I felt was appropriate, and we have pursued that. Others we've not pursued because we didn't feel like we needed it.
All right, time, and Ms. Graziano, reply.
Yeah, I just want to say that is correct. That the peacekeeper he's referring to was not what I was referring to. I have driven that vehicle. I know it's not practical to be on the streets of Charleston, but that is correct. The equipment that we have now is a result of a Homeland Security grant that we received.
All right, we'll move to the next question. Mr. Cannon, you're up first with this one. What is your view on handling ICE detainer requests unless they are accompanied by a judicial criminal warrant or are for minor offenses that do not involve injury to persons or property?
We participate in a federal program. She spoke of it just a minute ago. She named it anyway, the 287G program. And we received, there are only, I think, 3 jails in South Carolina that qualify for this. But under the Obama administration in 2009, we were designated such facility, and we have 16 detention folks who are have gone through special training and are deputy ICE inspectors, so to speak, and we process people into the jail. And by the way, prior to 2014, we were looking at years where we had well in excess of 30,000 folks processed through the jail each year. Since many of the things we've instituted as a result of Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, we have now, we see about 14 or 15,000 a year. So the admissions has been dramatically decreased. But
I'm going to have to stop you right there, Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Graziano, your response.
You're referring to the 287G agreement with ICE? Is that the question?
Well, your view on handling ICE detainer requests unless they are accompanied by a judicial criminal warrant or are for minor offenses that do not involve injury to persons or property.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. And I want to say that first and foremost, this is an agreement that that the sheriff has to sign with ICE. It's not something that they're allocated to do or chosen to do from the federal government. First, I'm not in favor and I would not cooperate. I would immediately rescind 287G with ICE for the mass incarceration efforts of nonviolent, like you stated, immigrants who have not created a criminal offense. The problem with 287G is there's a couple things. It's an extension of the federal government's efforts to deport criminals for nonviolent offenses, as you stated, and it contradicts efforts that I want to do to unite our communities, particularly when you're trying to rebuild a lost trust with the law enforcement. Secondly, it is racial profiling and targets brown communities. And lastly, the county taxpayers pay 59% of the costs associated with these efforts, probably more than that now that I know that there's 16 people, which is 41% of the money we receive is from the federal government. I think it's irresponsible and it doesn't keep our communities safe. And it outsources our citizens to pay for programs when lawmakers fail to address underlying immigration issues.
All right, thank you. Sheriff Cannon, I see your hand. Go ahead and reply.
Absolutely. To begin with, the criteria eliminates minor offenders as far as being detained by ICE. The only thing that we do is notify them when there is an ICE inmate in there, and they make a determination. This is someone who has been arrested for something else. And there are, quote, minor offenses, DUI, that is perhaps a nonviolent charge, but that is one that fits in that category. But by and large, there are not minor offenses that end up with people being deported.
And Ms. Graziano, I'll give you an opportunity to reply to that with your hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, first of all, there are 4 agencies in the state that participate, not 3. Charleston County is the largest. And in the last 4 years, we have deported over 2,500 immigrants through our jail. And that has an enormous impact on our community. Again, it's irresponsible. It doesn't keep the community safe. It outsources our citizens to pay for programs when lawmakers fail to do their job. So we are paying $4 million a year as citizens, as Charleston County taxpayers, to offset the actual cost. Remember, they get money from the federal government, but it only covers 41%. That's Charleston County's numbers, not mine.
And Mr. Cannon, go ahead.
Just a quick response on that. We have not deported anyone. We hold ICE detainees in the detention center, and they go through the legal process that is available to the government to make a decision as to whether or not a person should be. But that is one of the responsibilities of a detention center. And these are folks, like I say, it's not minor offenders. These are serious offenders. And there hasn't been 2,500 that we have been involved in.
All right, I'm going to have to end the Q&A at this point, given the clock that's caught us. It's really flown by. I'm going to give you guys both a chance to catch your breath, and then I will offer you each some closing remarks. And if you choose to revisit some of the back and forth that's already gone forward, that'll be fine too. Whether you are voting early in person, by absentee, by mail, or on election day, now's the time to make your voting plan. Let me just get a couple of little pieces of housekeeping in here for the League of Women. A lot of voting rules have changed in 2020, including options for how, when, and where you can vote. Now is the time to check your voter registration on vote411.org. That's the League's nonpartisan voter information website, and you can make sure you're ready to participate in this upcoming election. Also, on Vote 411, you can learn about the candidates you'll be voting on, compare candidate responses to various League questions, find your polling place, and learn about any COVID-related voting changes. Early voting by mail and in person begins next week. To request an absentee ballot, contact Charleston County Election Office now. The number is 843-744-VOTE. For early voting times and locations, you can visit your county election office website or the voting page on the Low Country website. So now it's time for 60-second closing statements. We'll go in reverse order from our opening statements, and we'll begin with Ms. Graziano. Don't forget to unmute. There you go.
Got you. I just want to reflect. Thank you first and foremost, and the League for putting this forum on. But what I want to say is that we are in a really critical time in our state. Charleston County is in a unique position to change the face of politics in this state by electing the first woman ever to serve in the office of sheriff. More importantly, though, we don't get a second chance to get it right. So thoughtful, impactful, and transparent leadership is essential going forward. Look, I'm more than qualified. I've been boots on the ground for 30 years, serving my community and keeping it safe. This is something I care deeply about. This is deeply personal to me. My family has been the victim of violent crime and trauma. I care about protecting others and have others experience what I experienced in my family. You know, Justice Ginsburg said, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way in which will lead others to join you. I will lead that fight in Charleston County, so I ask you to join me, and I'm confident that the best days are ahead of us, and I look forward to continued service as your next sheriff.
And Mr. Cannon, your closing comments?
Thanks, Warren. I have spent much of my adult lifehood building the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, again, with a lot of help, into a highly regarded, highly respected organization. It has a budget of close to $85 million, and when fully staffed, the number of employees is in the area of 900. It takes a tremendous amount of training and experience to, particularly in this day and time with all of the issues going on that we are faced with, it requires someone who has experience in dealing with issues on a much higher level than the street level. And that's where Kristin's experience has been. And I would submit that that is not the kind of experience that puts you in a position to make the kinds of decisions that the sheriff has to make.
Sheriff, I'm going to have to stop you right there. Thank you. I want to thank both candidates. We promised 4:30 would be when we would clock out in order for them to keep other schedules that they have on this busy Saturday. We thank them for being with us. I want to thank those who kind of tuned in, if you will, as well, via Zoom here with us today. And I hope you were able to draw some distinctions about these two candidates who had some very insightful and thoughtful answers to the questions. We encourage you to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and vote for the candidates of your choice on November 3rd. Thanks again to our candidates for Charleston County Sheriff. Please turn on your video, and if you'd like, you can give them a warm virtual round of applause. Our thanks as well to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this again. And have a great weekend, everybody, what's left, and thank you for being with us this afternoon.